It has been nothing but net for the women's basketball team. The Trojans are 6-0.
Unexpected losses by the men's basketball team forces it to lock in for the rest of the season.
And after winning the MPSF Championship, men's water polo is gearing up for the NCAA tournament.
Welcome back to the final edition of Sports Scene for the fall semester. I'm Casey Kasliner.
I'm Pickle Coleman.
And I'm Scott Hills. The Trojans football team finished their disappointing anticlimactic season with a record of 7-5, and the last Pac-12 football season has almost reached an end. On Friday, Oregon and Washington will play the last ever Pac-12 game when they meet in the Pac-12 Championship. The conference's 108-year-long run will come to an end.
I'm going to miss those rivalries. I mean, the Apple Cup's going to continue on, but the stakes will never be the same. We'll see what happens with the Civil War and just all the old school rivalries. Utah and USC, we were a budding rivalry if we continued this for a decade, and that's no more. So I'm going to miss those rivalry matchups.
Next year, the Pac-12 will have 10 teams moving to 3 different conferences. USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington will head to the Big Ten. Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado will move to the Big 12, and Stanford and Cal will head to the ACC.
The fact that the Pac-12 is not only dissolving, but they're going to 4 different conferences all across the country is going to be really strange. Like Stanford and Cal in the ACC. So it's the Conference of Champions was a glorious thing while it was here, and I'm sad it's gone.
I'm going to miss probably the fact that we would win games. I'm quite terrified that we are going to get absolutely destroyed in the Big Ten after watching the Michigan-Ohio State game.
It's going to be a lot harder to actually see games, especially away games, because it's going to be a lot further. So I'm going to miss the games in proximity.
Guys, this is a big shift in college sports that we've been anticipating for quite a few months now. Now that it's quickly approaching, how do you see this impacting the Pac-12 teams that are going to be making this shift and the future of NCAA sports as a whole?
Well, I think it's bittersweet, right? We always have talked about, the NFL being a more corporate league, more of a business, whereas college has been kind of involving the fans and involving tradition. So I do think it's bittersweet in the way that, you're losing that tradition, but, for certain teams, it could be more lucrative. I think for the Pac-12 teams, I think it's really interesting how it could affect travel, especially for these young athletes who are still in class, still students, but are athletes at the same time simultaneously, and will have to deal with traveling all the way across the country and possibly for USC when they head over to the Big Ten. So I think it's kind of bittersweet, but we'll have some great matchups in store in the coming years.
Definitely. I really feel like TV networks have kind of taken over on this one, with the Big Ten and all the team, it becoming the Big 30 soon. But, it doesn't really make sense to me with what you said about student athletes, traveling all the way across the country. And then also you think about the fan bases, how many USC fans are going to be at a game in Maryland, How is that going to affect the season? How is that going to affect the fandom? And just, taking geography out of the question in general definitely switches up tradition a little bit, but it definitely will be exciting and interesting to see the shifts.
I personally think a move to the Big Ten in the long run is going to be good for teams like USC and these other Pac-12 teams, just in pushing competition across all athletics. The history and culture of the Big Ten is really unbeaten across all conferences. It's an environment that's really going to allow USC to maintain those rivalries against teams like UCLA and independent Notre Dame, but also foster new competitive experiences against extremely talented teams. Also, the Pac-12 conference went out on an extremely high note. They had tons of success this college football season. If it's the conference that's going to tragically have to dissolve, this is the note to go out on.
For sure. And the Pac-12 still does, however, have one final game, the Pac-12 Championship. On Friday, the conference's top 2 teams, Washington and Oregon, will face each other in Las Vegas. The Huskies were the first Pac-12 school to go undefeated in the regular season since the conference expanded to 12 teams in 2011. Thanks to Michael Penix Jr. and his outstanding receiving corps, Washington had the second best passing offense in the country. Oregon took a tough loss in Seattle back in October, but have been absolutely dominant before and since. The Ducks rank in the top 10 nationally in both scoring offense and scoring defense, putting up over 40 points per game while allowing just 15. They say defense wins championships, but there's a big disparity between these two on that side of the ball. The Ducks allowed the fewest points and were the second in the conference in yards allowed. Washington's defense was not as strong this season, but was opportunistic, leading the Pac-12 in interceptions. The final game in Pac-12 history will kick off in Las Vegas on Friday at 5 p.m. For more on what to expect and what this game means for the playoff, let's send it to Will and Thomas.
All right, me and Thomas here in Studio A to break down the very last Pac-12 football game ever between two conference opponents. It's a top 5 matchup. It's all on the line. Thomas, who do you got?
You have to take Washington here. They're the undefeated team, and they've proven that they can win close games. And we haven't really seen that from Oregon. Washington, 6 of their last 8 wins were by 1 score. And one of those 1-score games came over Oregon. We've already seen Washington beat Oregon. I don't know how you can take Oregon here.
I can take Oregon because they've just frankly been the most dominant team in this conference all year in terms of point differential. Even though they've lost a game, theirs is up there with the Michigans and the Georgias of the world. They're one of 2 teams competing for a playoff spot right now that ranks in the top 10 in both scoring offense and defense. That other team would be Georgia. Washington scoring defense, 49th. They're just better at more things, Oregon is. And as far as that game in October went, yes, Oregon lost a tough game, but that game was in Seattle where Washington is 14-0 over the last 2 years. This is on a neutral site.
But the thing is, Will, we talked about that point differential, but we haven't seen Oregon play many close games. I don't know if they're going to be able to win those close games. Only 2 of their games have been 1-score games. One of those games was that loss to Washington. And I think we can both agree that no matter the results of this game, it's going to be close between Washington and Oregon. We've just seen Washington prove that they can win those tough, gritty, close games.
I agree it's going to be a war, but you know who I want in a game like that? How about the most experienced quarterback in, not just in the Pac-12, not just in college football, the history of college football. No quarterback has ever started more games than Bo Nix. There's no situation at this point that he hasn't seen. He will be very ready for that neutral site Vegas environment, and let's be honest about that game. Oregon was 0 for 3 on 4th down. They missed a very makeable field goal at the end that could have sent that game to overtime. My expectation is they're not going to make those many mistakes this time around. And let's compare common opponents for these teams. The last 2 games Washington played, they needed a late 4th down conversion and a roughing the passer to take down Washington State. And they gave up 20 points to Oregon State in a monsoon. Oregon in perfect weather only gave up 7.
Winning close games. That is what we're talking about here. Washington wins close games. Oregon doesn't.
Well, one thing neither of us would debate is that this game will decide a spot in the college football playoff. And knowing that those official top 4 is going to come out on Sunday, you and I both made predictions for what that Final 4 is going to look like. Thomas, why don't you take us through yours?
I think the top 3 is going to remain the same. So that means Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, Washington, assuming they win, stays at 3. But I think Texas is going to come in at number 4 as the Big 12 champion. Florida State currently occupies that spot. I think they lose to Louisville this weekend.
I don't see it. I know Florida State's a little bit flawed right now, but Louisville just lost to Kentucky, a very mediocre SEC team. And I understand Florida State had a starting quarterback injury to their starter, Jordan Travis. But the reality is they are never going to leave a 13-0 Power 5 champion out. That invalidates the entire process. If you win all the games ahead of you, you win your conference and you don't get put in. And a little history lesson for you. First year of the college football playoff, Ohio State was right on the verge. Their top 2 quarterbacks both went down. They had to turn to Cardale Jones in the Big Ten championship game. They were able to get by Wisconsin. They put him in because they won that game, and they not only got into the college football playoff, they beat Alabama and Oregon to win a national championship. So don't count out Florida State. I have them in my 3.
Well, I agree. If Florida State wins the ACC championship, they're going to get in. You can't remove a Power 5 conference champion, undefeated nonetheless. But we've seen Louisville already beat Notre Dame this year, shut out Duke. I think they have all the tools they need to beat a Florida State team that's on their second-string quarterback in Tate Rodemaker.
I'll tell you what, this is a neutral site game. They played a tough game. Gainesville is always tough in the swamp to get a win. So look, that's a rivalry game. It's a little bit fluky. Louisville just, for me, doesn't have the horses to get it done. But that's it for our postseason predictions in college football. Let's send it back to the desk for a little bit of basketball.
The USC men's and women's basketball seasons are both well underway.
Okay, they're tough.
While one team has excelled through its first 6 games, another is looking a little underwhelming thus far. Women's basketball is now 6-0 following a 41-point victory over Cal Poly. The Trojans are ranked 6th in the AP poll, their highest ranking since 1994. USC was on fire the entire game and was leading 42-20 at halftime. USC recorded just 9 turnovers while the Mustangs gave up the ball 25 times. Additionally, freshman standout Juju Watkins recorded her 2nd straight 30-point game of the season.
I do think our depth is a strength of ours. Obviously, we opened the first 5 games with 4 teams, that are postseason teams, and so. Maybe it's been inverted in some ways that people haven't gotten all the reps and opportunities, but we know that our depth is going to be critical. We know that we have different pieces who can do different things, and I thought they gave great minutes tonight across the board, and that allows us to play a different way, allows us to rest some people, but allows us to keep coming at people, at opponents in the way that we want to.
The Trojans dominated their first 6 games of the season. The Trojans also extended their non-conference home winning streak to 13 games. Notable wins against Ohio State and Penn State show that this team should be ready for Big Ten competition come next season. So you guys, given this incredible start to the basketball season, what do you think the future holds for this women's basketball team?
I really think the sky's the limit. You have a team that, has been good over the years, but has not been championship level good in a long time. But I think, you have a player like Juju Watkins, you have the role players and other stars to feed her the ball and at will. We saw last night, and over the course of the season, she's putting up close to 30 points per game. And Mackenzie Forbes, players like that have really been sharing the ball, but also scoring when Juju's not on the court, have really been the X factor. I think this team has championship level expectations, and I don't see any reason why they can't make it there this year.
I agree, Casey. Like we've talked about, this is a team that started strong right off the bat with a big ranked win against a great Ohio State team. They held off some close games against Seton Hall and a good Penn State team. Juju Watkins and Rhea Marshall have been clutch for this team. My only concern is pacing. We don't know the full potential of this team. They have a long season ahead of them. I would hate to see them burn out come March. So I just want to make sure they can pace themselves and keep this high level of play throughout the rest of the season.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to see what this women's team can do. As I said last show, Juju Watkins definitely was well worth the hype. She has risen and beyond to the occasion, and I'm so excited once we get into March Madness and all that to see what they really can do. But Will Simons is joining us to break down Juju Watkins' stellar play through the first 6 games.
Yeah, as you guys said, USC Women's Hoops is looking like a contender, and freshman guard phenom Juju Watkins is a major reason why. I'm going to break down all the different ways she impacts a game. First, let me take you back to last Wednesday in the Bahamas, starting with the Trojans trailing by 6 to Penn State with just 2 minutes to go. As you can see, Juju gets into the lane, pulls up for a jumper but misses, but gets her own rebound, pops it back in. That makes it a 4-point game with under 2 minutes to go. Next possession, she avoids a steal, pops a transition 3, drains it. Now it's just a 1-point game. And then finally, about 30 seconds to go, Watkins drives the hoop again, gets through 2 defenders and pops it in for a layup to go ahead. That's a 7-0 run for Watkins on her own to take the lead and win it. Here, last night against Cal Poly, you can see the way she can drive through contact and still pop a jumper and one. And she affects the game on the defensive end too. You can see this steal, takes it herself with the left hand. She does everything for this team. And here you can see some stats from Watkins' stellar start. She already has 4 30-point games in just 6 opportunities. That's more than any USC freshman has had in a season. That includes Lisa Leslie, by the way. Also, I have to give a shout out to Aaliyah Gales, who had a massive milestone in her recovery from being shot 9 times last April. As you can see right here, she scored her first career points last night on this 3. An awesome moment for both her and her teammates. And you can see how much it means to the bench. I want you to look at Juju Watkins. Look at how high she jumps here. She's so excited, and everybody else on that bench so excited for her teammate. It's such a cool moment for her and this whole program, really. And as you guys mentioned over at the desk, this is such an entertaining team to watch right now with so many intriguing storylines to watch out for throughout the season. Now let's head back to the desk to talk some men's hoops.
While women's basketball is off to a perfect start, the same cannot be said about the men's team, unranked again and off to a 4-2 start to the season. Tonight, the Trojans are set to play against the Eastern Washington Eagles. The Eagles are 1-5 this season following a loss to Washington State on Monday. After this home game, the Trojans play Gonzaga in Las Vegas on December 2nd. Catch the Trojans take on the Eagles tonight at Galen Center at 8 p.m. While the men's team has provided some excitement in the first season of play, it has also seen a couple of disappointing losses. Against UC Irvine, the Trojans couldn't get much going without veteran guards Boogie Ellis and Kobe Johnson. Last week, the team suffered its second loss to Oklahoma on a game-winning buzzer beater. Before the loss to Oklahoma, the Trojans stopped Seton Hall in the first round of the Ratty Children's Invitational Tournament. However, the loss to the Sooners caused USC to fall out of the top 25. Here's what guard and team captain Kobe Johnson said on the team's mindset going forward.
I think at the beginning of the season, we definitely had those end-of-season goals and those big-time goals that everybody talks about. But I think further into the season that we go into, I think we got to really learn about taking it step-by-step, game-by-game, because we know that we can't take any team lightly. I think we learned that these past few games. So I think just taking every game seriously and learning step-by-step, getting better each game, I think that will help us now and going into March.
Freshman guard Isaiah Collier, the nation's #1 recruit, continues to impress the college basketball world. He's averaging 18.2 points per game, which is second on the Trojans behind Boogie Ellis's 20.2. One area of concern this season, though, the turnovers. So far this season, Collier has turned the ball over 32 times. That's 8 more turnovers than he has assists at 24. Collier averages 4 assists per game, but gives the ball away an average of 5.3 times, which indicates a theme of inaccurate passing. Head coach Andy Enfield spoke on Collier's play.
And he tried to do too much. He took some tough shots and ill-advised turnovers, and he learned a lot this week. And I think you saw that. He's much more efficient tonight. He just has to keep getting better as a player, defensively and offensively. And he's extremely talented, but talent doesn't help your team win if it's inefficient talent.
So through 6 games, what are your guys' main observations from this USC men's team?
I mean, despite some disappointing losses early, I think that there's a lot of talent on this team. You know, you have guards Boogie Ellis, shout out, who was just watching Will and Thomas in Studio A, and Isaiah Collier. I mean, also shout out Joshua Morgan, who's been incredible on defense. I mean, he just had a school record of 10 blocks, which is the most by any player in a Division I game this season. And I think that there's a lot of hope, and it's still early. I mean, these inconsistencies, I think, you know, are due to just getting started and trying to find that firepower. So I think that this team is really going to get it going soon, and I'm really excited to watch.
You know, Collier is a young player who's jumped right into stardom. It makes sense that he's a little stubborn in sharing the ball. But if this team wants to have the season they've been hyped up to have, they need to be more consistent offensively and not turning over the ball, sharing the wealth across the court, making more easy baskets. Joshua Morgan has also been really clean for them, as you mentioned, Pickle. They have big games ahead. It's early in the season. I think it's too soon to write off this USC team. They still have plenty of months of play ahead of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think numbers can tell the whole story. I think the bigs need to step up more on offense. I mean, we've seen great defense from Joshua Morgan and some of the others, but I would like to see, you know, especially when Isaiah Collier, he's giving good dishes down inside, and guys like Vince Iwuchukwu sometimes can't finish, and Joshua Morgan, same could be said about him. So I'd love to see the offense flourish a little bit more, especially when Collier makes those passes. And yes, he's had limited assists compared to his turnovers, but I mean, those guys aren't always scoring when they're fed good passes. So I'd love to see the bigs make a bigger impact, especially considering the depth the Trojans have at guard with Johnson, Collier, and Ellis. So we'll see what happens when conference play commences soon. Coming up, Will and Thomas will discuss this week's top Trojans.
And we'll talk about women's volleyball as the Trojans gear up for the NCAA tournament action. All of this next on Sports Scene.
Let me tell you how we amplify our Latina voices. Check out Dímelo. We have it all. Deportes.
Entertainment. Noticias. ¿Qué tal? Soy Mariela Gómez y bienvenidos a Dime la Hora.
Radio and Podcasting.
Comida y cultura. Digital social media.
¿A qué equipo le vas tú? LA Galaxy o LAFC? Dímelo is the only Latina-focused media outlet at USC. Dímelo. We have it all.
Dímelo. We have it all.
Mr. Owl, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
Let's find out. 1, 2, 3.
How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know.
There's a new pet.
Chia.
Chia Pet, the pottery that grows. It's fun and easy. Soak your chia, spread the seeds, keep it watered, and watch it grow. And now grow a whole collection of fun with Chia teddy bears, puppies, kittens, rams, bulls. There's even a Chia tree to keep your pets company. Chia Pets and Trees, the pottery that grows.
The Chia Pet and Chia Tree are available at Kmart, Rite Aid, Ames, and Woolworth. Makes a great gift.
Welcome back to Sports Scene. Women's volleyball is preparing to make a postseason run starting this weekend after an up-and-down regular season that included 3 wins against ranked teams and appearances in the top 25 themselves, but ended in a 3-game loss streak that ultimately gave them an 18-12 record. The Trojans' season was led by the likes of star outside hitter Skylar Fields, junior setter Mia Tuaniga, and freshman standout London Weejay, all of whom earned Pac-12 postseason awards. Fields and Tuaniga were named to the Pac-12's all-conference team, while outside hitter Weejay earned all freshman awards. The final game of the regular season for the Trojans was a rematch against crosstown rival UCLA, who they beat earlier in the year. This time, however, the Trojans fell to the Bruins in a close 5-set match when the Bruins outpaced the USC attack and found success in their star middle blocking duo of Anna Dodson and Desiree Becker. Despite their close loss to the Bruins, the Trojans earned an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament starting later this week. Let's send it over to Crash for more on the road ahead for the USC women's volleyball team.
This week, USC women's volleyball heads east to Pittsburgh for the NCAA tournament, where it will face the UMBC Retrievers. UMBC won both the America East Conference regular season and tournament championships. Despite USC ending the season on a 3-match losing streak, head coach Brad Keller mentioned that the tournament can really rally a team instantaneously. Keller broke down how the team's mindset needs to be for the tournament after practice yesterday.
How do you not get fired up for this? This is the NCAAs. You earn the right to be in this place, and it's win or you go home. This is the best thing ever. So there's no motivation involved. This is what we do. This is what we want to do. We want to be a part of this. We earn the right to be here. And so if they're not up for it, then they shouldn't be here.
With a win over UMBC, the Trojans will most likely face the Pitt Panthers, the number 4 overall seed in the tournament, on Saturday. The Panthers clinched a share of the ACC title, and Keller described Pitt as a, quote, super polished team, end quote, that is really good defensively. Now let's send it back to the desk.
As the Trojans hope to advance in the NCAA tournament, Annenberg Media reporter Tracy Mejia had an opportunity to sit down with USC volleyball's dominant outside hitter, Kayla Williams.
And what a point for Washington State, started and ended by Kalia Williams.
USC number 8, Kalia Williams, has been playing volleyball since age 15 and continues to hone her skills through college, but also balances being a student.
My student athlete experience, I've loved every second of it, although sometimes I do wish I had the opportunity to just be a regular student. But being in the Pac-12 has also been great because it's a really high caliber of competition, especially for volleyball.
Grad school was not planned for Williams, but she was given 2 more years of school due to being redshirted her freshman year in Washington State, and also due to COVID.
I never thought I would be in grad school. My goal was to go and get a scholarship and play the 4 years, and then I ended up redshirting my freshman year, so that means I get an extra year of sports and school.
Being a student athlete means putting yourself out in social media to represent your team and the school. But for Williams, at times one can get backlash.
The downside of it all is now in our generation, social media and stuff, you do one wrong thing and you're getting ripped to shreds, And then when you do something great, everyone loves you.
Student athletes are balancing so many things at once, such as school, social life, and also the physical drain of practice and playing.
That is one of the biggest things that I'll always advocate for is people don't know. People don't know how mentally strenuous being an athlete is, and then having to do classes as well. Because if you think about it, if you have a regular student, you have all this homework, all these tests and everything, and you're already stressed out about it. I have that, and I have to go and compete in the Pac-12, and I have practice every day, and I have, like I said, the backlash of social media coming after me. So I don't think people realize how much is put into being a student athlete.
One thing Williams strongly advocates is that student athletes should get to know themselves outside of their sport, and that they are more than just athletes and students. For Annenberg Media, I'm Tracy Mejia.
Now we're going to move from the court to the pool. Men's water polo is currently ranked 1st in the nation and is gearing up for its 19th straight NCAA appearance on Friday as the Trojans look for an 11th national title. Last week, USC took home a 13-12 win over Cal in Berkeley, claiming its second straight MPSF championship win. Senior captain Max Miller already had a hat trick by halftime and ended up scoring an impressive 7 goals. The match was a tough battle, but the Trojans fought hard till the end and came out with a crucial win. This year's National Collegiate Men's Water Polo Championship will feature 8 teams with 2 at-large teams and 6 automatic qualifiers. The top 2 seeds at large are UCLA at number 1 and Cal at 2, and then USC is seated in the number 3 spot. The Trojans' last national championship win was in 2018, so they hope to take back the title this weekend. The tournament begins on Friday at 6 p.m. against San Jose State. And now, for the final time this semester, let's send it over to Will and Thomas to hand out their Trojan of the Week picks.
It's that time again. Will and I have our Trojans of the Week. Some sports are ending just as other sports are starting up as the semester closes out. I have someone whose season is just starting to end. I want to shout out Max Miller. We just talked about him, but for his performance in the MPSF tournament just 10 days ago when he willed his team to the NCAA tournament. The senior 2-meter scored a whopping 7 goals in USC's 13-12 win over Cal in the MPSF finals. It was a career-high goal total for Miller, who has played in 3 NCAA finals matches. Now he'll try to lead the Trojans to their first title since 2018.
I'm going with USC men's basketball's Kobe Johnson for his stellar 2-game stretch in San Diego at the Rady Children's Invitational over the holiday break. Johnson was the Trojans' best defender on Thanksgiving Day against Seton Hall, recording a season-high 5 steals. On Black Friday against Oklahoma, he led the team in scoring with 16 points while recording 3 more steals and 2 blocks. All right, so you're going to the pool this week for Trojan of the Week. Break down your pick for us.
Well, Will, you gave me a history lesson back in Studio A, so it's now time for a history lesson for you. This year, men's water polo had their worst conference record since 1991. They had a 3-game losing streak in October, only their second streak that long since 2002. This team should not be in the NCAA tournament, but Max Miller scored 7 goals in postseason play to will his team to the NCAA tournament. I don't know how you can choose Johnson here. He lost at the Rady Invitational.
Well, they went 1-1. He didn't only lose, to be fair. But let's take a look at the first half of that Seton Hall game. He was just a monster on the defensive side, and this is what Kobe Johnson does. He has 3 steals per game in the early season. That would be second in the Pac-12 if he had enough games to qualify. But he was great to help them build up that early lead on the defensive side. And the offensive side, on the offensive side in that game against Oklahoma, yes, they lost, but he was the only reason they were in that game. By far their most efficient shooter among guys who had more than 2 shots, led the team in points on a night where Boogie Ellis just wasn't getting the job done from an efficiency standpoint. He was really outstanding on the offensive side, and you can tell already how important he is to this team overall.
But Max Miller was the only reason USC was in that Cal game, but his team actually won in postseason play. You're talking about a regular season loss here. I just don't think you can choose Johnson here. Max Miller is the Trojan of the Week.
Well, it was Feast Week. It was a tournament against some big non-conference opponents, so it does matter. And at the same time, Miller obviously scores a lot of goals, but Kobe Johnson is a guy who does everything. I mentioned the steals. I mentioned the blocks. Funny enough, in that Seton Hall game, as a guard/small forward, led the team in rebounds. He's just an everyman. He understands his role, and he does a great job.
Yeah, Miller scores a lot of goals, but his team also wins, so... When we come back from the break, the NHL season is now over a couple months in. We'll talk about the LA teams. And following Week 12, the NFL playoff picture is shaping up. We have our thoughts next.
Bonjour, je suis le grand musique.
Je suis la jeune fille.
Yes, that's French they're speaking, and no, these children aren't French, they're American. And they've acquired their amazing new language skills from Muzzy, the remarkable new video language program for children developed by the British Broadcasting Corporation. With this unique BBC language course, children learn a second language with incredible ease. 4 delightful videos quickly become their favorite TV show and teaches children the same way they learned English. Learning another language becomes fun. You'll be amazed when your children begin speaking and understanding their new language from the very first day through this unique method. The entire course, 4 videos, 2 audio cassettes, the activity book, and the Parent's Guide and Answer book is available in French, Spanish, Italian, or German.
To order, use your credit card and call this number. We'll ship and charge you $28.08 a month for 6 months. Your satisfaction is guaranteed. Call 1-800-424-0700.
Okay, this stuff is really amazing. I mean, I put it in my mouth and I taste watermelon, but it's not just that. I taste strawberry too, but it's kind of like a watermelon-y strawberry put together. Hang on. Sorry about that. And the bubbles are really awesome. I mean, that's why they call it Max, I guess, obviously. That sort of makes sense once you think about it. Oh, I'm Dan, and that's Chuck. Hubba Bubba Max. A whole new kind of bubble. Hey!
The NHL's Kings and Ducks have both made their marks this season in a tightly contested Pacific Division. But right now, both teams are on streaks. The Kings are winning, and the Ducks are losing. The Los Angeles Kings have won 5 straight and have been led by center Adrian Kempe, who has racked up 20 points thus far. Goaltender Cam Talbot has been one of the best at protecting the puck this season and has been in net for 10 of the Kings' wins this year. LA's offensive attack on the top lines has been lethal and has scored at least 4 goals in each of the last 4 games. The Kings will take on the Capitals at 7:30 p.m. at Crypto.com Arena tonight. While the Anaheim Ducks have shown glimmers of success, the team has now lost 7 straight. The Ducks started the season well and had a 6-game win streak heading into November, but have fallen off as of late. Anaheim has had to deal with the absence of star center Trevor Zegras, who has been dealing with injuries. The Ducks have been led by former top 3 pick Mason McTavish, who has been a force up the middle. The Ducks will hope to end their skid against Washington tomorrow night at the Honda Center in Anaheim. So, of course, both NHL teams in Southern California kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum right now. What are your guys' main takeaways from either the Ducks or the Kings?
You know, for me, I think these LA Kings are on a roll right now. I got to hand it to Cam Talbot, their goalkeeper. A lot of people didn't know what to expect from a 36-year-old free agent, but he's been a literal saving grace for this team with 11.14 goals, saved above the NHL average. This is a team that can contend for the Stanley Cup. I know it's early in the year, but momentum is in the right direction for this LA team.
I mean, if we're picking sides, I can't get on this train. So I'm going to go with the Mighty Ducks. I think that it's time for a comeback. It's time for another fun comeback story, you know. Just like how I predicted the Rangers for the World Series, I'm going to, you know, hope for another fun story like that. You know, you can't always look at the stats. You can't look at how, you know, maybe the Ducks goaltending is not great, but you know, they've got good players. They've got McTavish, they've got Vetrano. Like you said, Zegras is out. But you know, there is hope for this team, and I'm gonna believe in a comeback story since my Blackhawks are not doing it right now.
Well, I want to bring it back to Cam Talbot. Of course, he came over from Ottawa in the offseason. Kind of a weird signing. Not really people were expecting him to come over, especially with Jonathan Quick, of course, with the Kings for so long, and of course departed to Vegas. But you know, Cam Talbot has been stellar this year. He's been that main guy, and Phoenix Copley in the tandem as well. So I've loved that for the Kings. But their top line has really been the story thus far. Quinton Byfield, the young player, has been a standout thus far. He's really been living up to those first round expectations. I've loved Kempe and Anze Kopitar as well. And Drew Doughty, of course, he's really been tried and true with that Kings team for so long. So I think the Kings, their top 6 is lethal. I'm loving their defense and their offense. I mean, putting the dagger in teams in the first period as of late has really been the story for them. And I think really there's no reason they can't catch Vegas for that top Pacific Division spot. We'll see what happens, but I think it's really all about Cam Talbot and his defenders, and of course that offensive line, first 2 lines, Anze Kopitar and the rest of the team that's really been performing.
Good points. I agree, Casey. It's got to be the Kings. Well, we are now through Week 12 of the NFL season, and the playoff picture is starting to shape up. Let's take a look at who's at the top. The Baltimore Ravens are 9-3 and currently hold the AFC's first-round bye. As for the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes and company are sitting at 8-3 and have an easier schedule as none of their remaining opponents have a winning record. The San Francisco 49ers are the heavier favorite out of the NFC. The 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles currently hold the NFC's first-round bye. Outside of these top teams, the Jaguars and Dolphins are in favorable positions in the AFC, and the Lions and Falcons in the NFC. As far as on the bubble wildcard options, teams like the Texans, Broncos, Bills, Packers, and Rams will have a tough road ahead to make a late case for themselves. So guys, how do you see the rest of this NFL playoff season playing out? Who are your guys' Super Bowl picks?
Well, I got to go with the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, this team fell just short last year to Philadelphia. And keep in mind, I mean, they're playing Philadelphia this Sunday. This could be the game of the year. 10-1 Eagles, a team that has kind of escaped away with some close wins, especially over Buffalo in overtime last weekend. But I think the 49ers have really everything on both sides of the ball. Losing Hufanga, former Trojan, was a travesty, but this team acquiring Chase Young, the defense has been ramped up. I think he's brought an energy to that defense that, like no other, as well for the offense. I mean, Deebo Samuel's return was kind of simultaneous with this team's resurgence. They were on a 3-game skid, have won their last 2. McCaffrey is scoring at will. Brock Purdy is finding his rhythm. Did have a pick 6 on Thanksgiving, but I really see the 49ers going all the way, especially if they can beat the Eagles on Sunday.
Yeah, I hear you, Casey, but I got to go with that Sunday rival, the Eagles. I mean, Jalen Hurts has been incredibly solid. He's thrown for like 18 touchdowns, ran the ball over 100 times. You know, you've got Devonta Smith rushing an average of 70 yards per game. This team is incredibly solid. They just beat the Chiefs, Bills, your Bills. And, you know, they haven't lost since early October against the Jets. So I have a good feeling about these Eagles. And, you know, your 49ers lost to my Bears last year in a little slip and slide of that.
I want to bring things back. You mentioned
I don't know if they're winning the Super Bowl.
You mentioned the Eagles lost to the Jets. I mean, how can a team that loses to a team that loses Aaron Rodgers, has been really horrible all season, how could they possibly win the Super Bowl?
I don't know, but Eagles are going to fly.
All right, let me remind everyone, Casey's a Bay Area guy. Of course he's going to take the 49ers. This is a strong team, but of course he's going with his hometown favorite. I'm taking an AFC team in the Ravens. You know, they're the top of their side on the league. They are plagued by, you know, a lack of recent playoff success, but Lamar Jackson is a veteran player. I think this is the year they do it. Of course, I'd love to take my Bills, but it's not going to happen for them this year, but
You think the Ravens can win when their best receiver is OBJ?
They've got a strong receiving core. They don't just have OBJ. You got Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers. There's options there. They can diversify the ball.
I don't know. I thought you were going to go with your sneaky Dolphins pick, but
maybe next year.
Guess not.
All right. That'll do it for this semester sports scene. We'll be back soon for more USC sports coverage and beyond. For the last time, for everyone at Annenberg Media, I'm Scott Hills.
I'm Casey Kausliner.
And I'm Pickle Coleman. Fight on. And a special thank you to Joey Elbaum and Hayes Flanagan, our amazing producers this semester. We have had the best time, and we are so grateful for everyone working behind the camera and obviously everyone on the camera. So, fight on!
Fight on. Are you ready for this? Oh, I can see my name under big lights. It sure looks good to me. I'm coming up now, I'm ready for the big time. I'm gonna be hard to beat. Oh, I'm a hard act to follow, got a big reputation. Oh, hold on now. Are you ready for this?